All right, Sarah, are you ready to do this?
I am
All right.
100% ready to go.
Okay, here we go. So 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, folks, welcome back to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. I'm very excited to have as my guest today, Sarah Miller. Sarah, welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I've been looking forward to it all day.
Awesome. All right. So Sarah says, I'm grateful to have had a diverse background and a multitude of different job positions over the last couple of decades. The foundations of my core values, she explains, come from the 9 years that I spent in the Royal Air Force, where I learned the power of strong teamwork, communication skills, organization, and dedication to a mission. Outside of my work, she goes on to say, I had an intense passion for the human body, health, and wellness, which led me to working in the health and fitness industry as a personal trainer and group exercise instructor, simply as a hobby. Um, you also go on to say you found yourself marrying a U.S. Army soldier, which was the catalyst for leaving the U.K. Air Force and traveling to set up a new life in the U.S. Thereafter, you pursued your desire to expand your knowledge in the human body and sought work as a physical therapist assistant. Sarah, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So before we get going here, I'm going to allow you to fill in that bio, but share rather, where you're from originally and where you are now.
Sure. So I'm originally from the UK. And, as you mentioned in the bio, I met my ex-husband, but my husband, I met him in the Air Force. We worked together. And I find myself getting married and coming to the US. And that was 11 years ago. And so now the US is my home. And I've lived in North Carolina, I've lived in Colorado, and now most recently I live in South Florida.
Okay. Now I know that I left out a kind of a crucial piece in that bio, which I think will kind of explain a lot more about why you're here. But well, let's get into it. Why are you sitting here talking to me right now?
Yeah. So last year, my world was turned upside down, uh, very unexpectedly. And my 4-year-old daughter drowned. And 2 days later, we found ourselves in the position of choosing to turn off her life support.
Oh my God. I mean, I am so sorry to hear that. When was that?
Last year,
Last
May of
year.
last year.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah, and it really, I mean, it just threw everything into absolute chaos. And I was in the depths of despair, and even just taking another breath was, I didn't want to, because I very much blame myself for what had happened. And, she needed me and I wasn't there. And it just spiraled into me being in a really bad place.
I mean, I can't imagine. First of all, I appreciate you coming on here and sharing that. It last year seems really soon recent.
Yeah, I mean, I think life has changed so much, and I've really kind of adapted as I've gone, and I'm still very much living my pain, but I've learned through using certain techniques myself, and that I can kind of manage my emotions more. And they're still
Mm-hmm.
there. It's not about erasing or fixing. And I think society just kind of lives in this world of, oh, something uncomfortable, let's fix it, or everything happens for a reason, or she's in a better place now. And I don't agree with that
Any of those.
philosophy. um but what I do, what I live by is my what I call my compassionate phrase is to suffer better and to nurture me. And so that pain is still there, but there's so much suffering in the world that I don't think I ever stopped to think about it until this happened to me. And I promised myself that I would be authentic and real about it. And at first, this wasn't the case. I was just pretending, I'm fine. I threw myself back into work. I just was getting on with life, and inside I was just crushed. And through a lot of therapy and a lot of work, I'm like, no, I want to be real about this. I want to be authentic. And I've had conversations just randomly with strangers, and I've mentioned it, and I've found that people have been so open to their own suffering. And you have big T and little t traumas, and okay, my situation may be this craziness, but that sense of suffering, if you're feeling it, the sense is the same, whether that's big suffering, small suffering,
Right.
whatever it is on the continuum.
If I may, and can you talk, can you share what happened? I mean, I'm not asking you to relive it, but give us a context of what exactly happened.
Yeah, of course. So my husband and I, at the time, we were getting a divorce, and I was going to be going back to work full time, and we had a dog who everybody adored, and we needed to rehome the dog. So we had gone to someone's house to drop off the dog so they could have a trial run, as such, of taking the dog for a few days. And we arrived, and my kids, because we had connected with them at the park the day before, and my kids and their kids were like, please, can they stay for a little bit, and they begged me to stay. That later on that day we were meant to be going swimming, and the I was speaking to the father saying, hey, this is how you feed the dog. And all of a sudden it kind of went very quiet, and I'm like, where's Madeline? And I didn't know, but the older kids had gone outside into their backyard, which had a pool in it, and they had come inside and shut the door, just kids being kids. And so she had got outside. So when I said, where's Madeline? The husband was like, oh, she's upstairs playing with the other
Hmm.
daughter. I go up there. No, she's not. And then I couldn't breathe. Like, I was like, oh no. And I just had this sense. And the the son it was just incredible. Like, he jumped into the pool, the 8-year-old little boy, and he got her out of the water.
Oh my God.
And then I was giving Madeline, my daughter's name, I was giving her CPR while my older daughter was screaming in terror in the background. And it all just kind of came, back. We went to the ER and then to the children's hospital, and they tried their best, but it wasn't Madeline. She didn't have brain waves, and it was
Mm.
unfair to keep her alive. And so we chose to donate her organs, and she she had this walk of honor from the PQ to the operating theater, and we played her favorite music, and the halls were lined with healthcare workers, and people were just kind of celebrating what her life and what she was doing. But her motto in life was caring is sharing, and filling up other people's buckets. And so she would go about her day, and she had this sparkle about her that just lit everybody up. It was this gift that she had just been given. And we were always outside walking our dog. And so everybody knew us. And our 30-minute dog walk would always end up being 2 hours, because we would have to have this little long chat with anybody that we met. And so that kind of really led to what I'm doing now.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. Jesus, you said something that struck me. You said a couple things. You brought up about the platitudes that people share. I'm sure. Well, my guess is mostly, and they do it to all of us. It's done in good faith. You'll get through this, and she's in a better place, and blah blah blah. You also said that you got to a point where you wanted to be authentic and you wanted to be real. How did you deal with people? First of all, how did you deal with what was your response when people said, you'll get through this, or she's in a better place, or what was the other thing you said? There's a reason for everything. Everything that's
Mhm. I I think at first I would just not really say anything. I would just be accepting of it, and then the way I dealt with it, that I wouldn't put myself in those positions as much. So I would be around people that I knew that I could be authentic with, and that I didn't have to pretend everything was okay. And that was a handful of people, including my own therapist, who is incredible. And I kind of backed away from it. I still had close contact with the people that made a difference, but I wasn't trying to be everything for everybody.
what if any meaning do you ascribe to this?
I don't think there's so much a meaning. I think that it happened, but I have been able to find meaning in it. So I don't think there was necessarily a given meaning, but from this happening, I'm doing things that I never in a million years imagined I would be doing.
Hmm.
Starting with, going on podcasts. I never in a million years, like, I would, me on a podcast, like, no way. I've lived this life of invisibility and not wanting to show my true colors, like, not pretending as such, but people pleasing.
Hmm.
And so what was born from it was Project Wellshine, which, and in Wellshine coaching, which I'm now the CEO of my business, and I'm trying to change the way that people live beyond grief. How people live alongside some kind of adversity. And I think that we don't ever, many times, what we do with any kind of adversity is we stuff it down, and we don't even kind of have that acknowledgement unless it's something really huge.
Hmm.
We don't have that acknowledgement of something creating suffering in our lives. Like, we just try and suck it up and get on with it. And I had been in many support groups and seen people living lives that had been affected by something that had happened in their past 10, 20, 30 years beyond. And so I help people to get unstuck. I help people to discover something more,
All right,
something
hang
more
on, hang
than
on.
good enough.
I want to get there, but how did you get there? When all this went down, you
Mhm,
said, you weren't authentic right off the bat, and I kind of want you to define what being authentic means to you, but
mhm.
walk us through the evolution, Sarah, a little bit of how you dealt with this, how you and why you started to or wanted to be or needed to be authentic, and then how you got to the point
Yeah.
where you said, I want to do something about this.
Yeah. So I was hiding from all my emotions, and I was hiding from everything. And that compounded inside of me without anybody else knowing what was going on. And my own self blame, and my ex husband now also blamed me for what had happened. And I attempted suicide. And that
So you
was
were
a,
married at the time that this occurred.
yes,
Okay,
yeah.
wow.
Um, and that was a big turning point for me, that it wasn't that I wanted to be dead. I just didn't want to feel what I was feeling because I didn't know what to do with it. And I think there's a big tie-in here with Project Wellshine, because this is me having a voice. This is me being authentic, and this is me putting everything out on the table and saying to people, you know, I've been there
Mm-hmm.
and I know what it feels like, and encouraging other people to not have to conform to, oh, there's a reason, and oh, you need to move on. You know, it happened 5 years ago, you need to move on.
Right.
Well, no, you're never going to move on with it.
Right.
You'll move forward, but you're never going to move away from it. That becomes a part of you, like an integral part of who you are.
How did it get to the
Like,
point, Sarah, where you said, I want to start Project Wildshine?
so in my world of physical therapy, I've always done stuff from the perspective that whole person wellness. So I wouldn't just go in and treat a patient and say, okay, we're going to do these exercises. I would look at the whole person and, you know, what mattered to those people, and why did they want to do what they wanted to do? Why did they want to walk? You know, did they want to go and pick up their grandkids, or did they want to be able to make themselves a sandwich, or whatever it happened to be? And that got me looking into the world of wellness coaching, because I really sparked my interest. So I took my qualifications and I started on the program, and I was just like, this has completely captivated me. I was like, I can't believe I mean, part of it was that I was already doing it, but I wasn't labeling it.
Mm-hmm.
But once I had that education, I just couldn't consume enough information about behavior change and, you know, the why behind why we do things. And that then really very quickly kind of turned into Project Wellshine, because I knew at that moment. And I think when Madeline happened, I was searching for, what can I do with this? How can I give it meaning? And too much. Like and then all of a sudden it just came to me. I wasn't even looking for it. And
Mm-hmm.
it came to me that, you know, by moving forward and extending out to other people that may have gone through something traumatic in their past, or something that makes them feel off balance, that I was actually paying forward Madeline's energy. And so
Mm-hmm.
her energy combined with my energy, and I feel like we're almost an unstoppable force, you know?
I had a friend that I used to work with a long time ago, and I remember we were working in a restaurant, and he was telling me about all the people who he knew, who his friends who had died from AIDS. And literally, he said he was counting them, 6, 7. I said, "Are you joking?" He said, "No, these were my friends." I said to him, "How
Wow.
do you deal with that? How do you get through that?" He said, "Well, I don't believe that all of this has a meaning, but," he said, "I need to find the meaning for me. What is it going to mean? Otherwise, I'm going to go nuts." And I believe, for me, that's the way I approach things, because I don't look at things like, well, crappy things happen and there's some kind of a, labeled meaning, but it's the meaning that I need to give it to move through this.
Mhm.
How do you work with people? So again, we're talking about Wellshine, Wellshine. What's the URL for this? How do people get in contact with you about this?
Yeah, it's wellshinecoaching.com.
Okay, so it's
Or y-
Wellshine.
yeah, or you can email me at sarah@wellshinecoaching.com.
Okay. So who would you say this is for?
I would say my specialized niche is working with other people who may have gone through the unexpected loss of a loved one, but also someone who's had some kind of experience in their past that prevents them from living to their full potential, prevents them from living their best life because they feel like they're living with this black cloud hanging over them, and wanting to discover who they are and who they want to become.
Now, with the idea that everyone's different and all situations are different, can you give us an example of how you might work with someone, how you might walk them through this process?
Yeah, so I have, and let me just say here too, is I think it's really important for me to put out there that I'm not a psychologist. That is not my area of expertise. I work with behavior change. And so I work best with people that are going through work with a psychologist at the same time to do that deep emotional processing, and the wellness coaching and the psychological work that may be going on in the background, it has together can make such a positive effect, like really profound effect.
Hmm.
And I found that for myself, like I have my own wellness coach, and it really played a huge part in helping me to transition, and I still am. I'm still discovering. So I'm sorry, I sidetracked there. So I have a signature program, which it's a workbook that's 12 to 16 weeks long, and that runs in the background.
Okay.
But the premise of the coaching is that the individual is an expert on themselves. So they come to a session, they talk about what is impacting them, what they want to talk about, and maybe some of the material in the signature program that they're going through each week sparks some kind of reflection.
Hmm.
And it's connecting with their core values, discovering what matters most to them. And I think when you have gone through something, you're stuck in this space of who am I? I don't know who I am anymore, that kind of sense. And even if it, just thinking a few words, such as what matters to you most. An example for myself, one thing that matters to me the most is love. So then we can take what matters most and design healthy actions around how we're going to get more of that into their life. And it's me guiding somebody else. It's not me instructing and me saying, you have to do X, Y, and Z.
Hmm.
It's not could, should, would. It's, what steps are we going to take to move forward? What goals are we going to make to nurture you?
Hmm.
And I think it's important to not set these huge, lofty goals. And then it becomes this pass or fail. And
Right.
then it's like, well, I failed, so I'm not going to continue on the journey. Um, and it's a discovery. It's definitely a journey and not destination. That's for sure.
Who are you finding? What people? What kind of people um, are coming to you? I mean, that sounds a little weird, weirdly phrased, but
Yeah.
you think I'd have to have this down by now. But who are the people that are coming to you? Are they people who've experienced a sudden loss, or other
Well,
that and others?
yeah, and I'm going to be completely transparent. Like I've coached people during my training, but this is like I'm building this as I go.
Okay.
And so I'm a new business. I'm getting started. I'm ready to work with people. I'm extremely excited about it. And so I'm putting myself out there as a resource for people.
Well, I can certainly appreciate that. Now, let me ask you this. I mean, obviously you've had a certain experience, but what is it about you, Sarah, that believes you can help people or help guide
Y-
them?
Yeah, I do think a lot of it is my life experience on top of the training. So, I have I have my certification. I'm going to be taking my national boards next year for wellness coaching. I'm also certified in heart math, which is an emotional self-regulation tool. And I'm trauma certified. It's a specific class that you do. And I'm certified in self-compassion.
All right. So you got all these
S-
certifications, but
Yes. So,
those are great. But I want to know seriously about you personally. Why do you think, or what do you think you have? And I know you do, but I want to
yeah.
hear you articulate it, that you feel you can work with people in this way.
I think it's, you know, everybody's journey through adversity is different. And I don't pretend to think that, well, I experienced it this way, so it means you're going to experience it that way. But I come to the table with a heart that knows. I know suffering, like inside out and upside down, you know. And I think you could take someone that has way more experience, but if you don't have that heart knowing, like deep in my heart, like I can connect with somebody.
Hmm.
And I think that connection is so valuable, more so than any amount of certificates I may have or any amount of experience. It's just that, okay, I'm going to sit with you in the uncomfortableness and respect that and acknowledge that, and be there to support and guide you from a place of knowing.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You know, you said a little before about and a lot of us feel, you know, when we experience something, we need to move through it. How am I going to fix this? How am I going to correct this? How am I going to shove this down? I don't want to feel
Mhm.
this. How much of that did you have to work through? Did you experience?
Huge amounts. I was in such denial, and I I think throughout life I've been very avoidant of uncomfortable emotions, and even now it's not like I'm all of a sudden fixed a year later. I still have my struggles, and I'm still working through things, and I still have a therapist, and I get days where it sucks, you know? And I can be back in a really bad place. But I know at the end of the day, my heart knows that there's more.
Hmm.
My heart knows that I'm going to find something different, but better alongside my pain. And I'm not trying to push away my pain anymore. I know it's there. I know it's going to be there forever. But I do things, and I have Madeline's energy in me. And it's so difficult for me to describe because it's a feeling I have. And, you know, I was saying to somebody the other day, I imagine it and it sounds kind of strange, but it's like my heart has this radiant light coming from it, like a rainbow of light coming out of it that's just like spreading out. And that's Madeline's light.
Mm.
And it's when I use the heart math techniques specifically myself, I really feel like I can connect to this space where she's there, but I feel her all the time. And that's what moves me forward, is this light that radiates from out of my heart.
That is awesome. I mean, my belief is that people are going to be lucky when they start working with you, you know, when they connect with you, because that, in my belief, that energy you're talking about, being able to communicate that and share that with someone, um, is a gift, but it's also where the healing happens when we connect with people, you know, in that way. It's not, yeah, certifications are great, and we all know that. You got to know your stuff, but it's
Mhm.
this other element, um, that is awesome. Just want to remind everyone that I'm speaking with Sarah Miller. We're talking about Well Shine Coaching, and she can be reached at wellshinecoaching.com. That's WELL shine, SHINE, coaching.com. I'll have that linked up at the show notes page at the traumatherapistpodcast.com. Yeah, man, this is it's 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 so intense, I think, to when you get to a point, when we all get to a point when we realize that certain pains we've had, certain experiences, and we all experience things differently on that spectrum of tragedy. But when we realize that they're not going away, I mean, right, it's a matter of how we manage and walk through those and deal with that. And like you said, you're not trying to put your pain away, but kind of dealing with it better. Let me go back before we kind of wind down here. You talked about, the need, the importance of being authentic. How do you define authenticity?
I think it's showing your true self. And so I think that we all have this inner voice within us and in our inner thoughts. And I think that more often than not, we go about life and we don't show that. So we never have a conversation about our core self. It's kind of like a hidden away, not to be talked about. And I think and I don't want to use the word exposing because that's not the right word, but it's being able to share that inner self with other people. And it's important I'm not saying that it should be shared with everybody, because that's not the case. You have to pick the right people, because there are some people that you need to distance yourself from. But for the people that are your tribe, it's important to be that true self, that, okay, my head is thinking this, and I want to share with you the real me, instead of keeping it locked away inside for nobody to hear.
And has this shifted for you prior to Madeline's death? Were you a different being in a sense?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've lived a life of suck it up and get on with it. And I still do have an element of that within me. I spent 9 years in the military. It's hard to take away that conditioned response. But I do have certain people in my life that if something's going on for me, I can verbalize it. I can say, hey, I'm having this thought. I can say, you know what, I had this amazing day today and I thought X, Y, and Z, just as much as I can say, you know what, today was the day from hell, and I started getting thoughts that I didn't want to be present again. And that's what I call reality. Like having those people near you who you can be your true self with, whether that be a good emotion, a bad, I don't like to label them as good and bad, something that is renewing or something that is extremely depleting. It's being able to share those with other people that matter to you most.
Well said. All right, Sarah, I'd love to have you back at a later time. Keep me posted about how Well Shine Coaching is doing. Man, super inspiring, and I'm so glad you agreed to come on here and share your story.
Thank you very much. I really, really appreciate your time, Guy. Thank you.
All right, we'll be in touch.
Thank you.